Hey everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in UFO Hunting. We went outside in our own backyard and set up 2 cameras about 26 feet apart to film the Lyrid Meteor Showers. While we did film quite a few meteors, we filmed just as many anomalous objects that required further investigation. So tonight's episode is called the Lyrid Objects. We applied the 3D analysis math to get size, speed, altitude, and the results were really fun to analyze. Did we photograph UFOs? Let's find out together. But first, the reason that we went out to film at all that night was the Lyrid Meteor Shower. These are meteors that radiate from the constellation Lyra, which you'll see highlighted in several of these clips. Truth be told, I wasn't that impressed. I thought they'd be more abundant, but in their defense, we weren't out there exactly at peak. Peak was between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. We only stayed out till 1 a.m. Okay, so the next thing we see is 2 satellites traveling together. At least they appear to be traveling together. So we decided to test that theory by calculating their orbital altitudes. We're assuming these are satellites and that they are flying in orbit, so we can assume orbital altitude. So when we do that, our calculations said that these satellites were flying 641 and 652 miles high. So that's pretty close for 2 tandem satellites to be flying pretty close. They're not going to hit each other, of course, but they're flying about 11 miles difference in altitude. And then we watched as they crossed the same point in space, and we determined that since their speed was 4.55 miles per second, both of them, that they're probably traveling together, and they're probably about 30 miles apart. Isn't that fun? We can tell just from our 2D analysis that those 2 satellites were likely launched together and likely are traveling the same path in space together. Nothing anomalous about that, but certainly interesting. About 10:40 in the evening, looking west, we caught 3 flashes off of a tumbling satellite. So sometimes when you just see these random flashes in the sky, it's these satellites with the flat faces catching the sunlight just right as they travel through the sky. Otherwise, we wouldn't see these guys at all. Did you ever see a flash in the night sky and wonder what you were looking at? Maybe a UFO, or maybe just a tumbling satellite. That is why I just love these cameras and their low-light capabilities. It allows us to go back and review these and see things like these tumbling satellites. Otherwise, it'd just be a flash in the sky and you'd go, "What was that?" Have you ever seen one? Let us know in the comments. It's roughly 10 o'clock at night, about 10:05. We're looking west again. You can see Mars and Gemini looking very bright and very pretty out in the western sky. This satellite is going to come in very dim, and then it's going to brighten up for a little bit, and then it's going to fade away again. There's another version of a tumbling or flashing satellite. It's about 11:30, and we're watching the eastern sky right now. And we see a blinker out there that gives us about 10 good blinks before it disappears into the Earth's shadow. Blinks almost as frequently as a plane, but there are no navigation lights, no red or green. This is only white, and it does fade away after 10 blinks. So, not a plane, blinking satellite. Hey, and now for the anomalies. There were 2 types. There were multi-objects that seemed to be lit or dimly lit from the ground, flying in formation. And then the other was looking like a rigid object, and there were several of those. So we will discuss those in the 2 groups. So the first is the lit or dimly lit objects. Here's the first one flying up to the right. There's about 4 of them. I can see 4 distinct objects. Now the second one is also in the same area of the sky. That looks like 3. Maybe that middle one is big enough to be 2 objects together. And here we go. Down and to the left is another object. It was light enough to be seen by this low light camera. I don't think we'd have seen these with our naked eye. But the objects clearly are just as bright as the stars behind them. So it's interesting. We're not sure what these are. Our problem with these, as far as getting altitude, size, and distance, is we know they're not orbital. They're too close and too fast. And we only had 1 camera trained on them. So the best that we can do is just evidence these. In this video, we have seen 3 objects that look like this. Okay, and now we have made it to the second type of the anomalies that we saw that night. This is a rigid object, or at least it looks like a rigid object in the photographs. We were lucky enough to have it caught on both cameras. So we did some deep dive analysis into size, speed, altitude, and distance. And I cannot wait to share these results with you. These were all in the eastern sky. The first one appeared just before midnight. It was the farthest away, and it seemingly just disappeared. The next one was about 40 minutes later. It appeared distant and also disappeared. That one seemed to have started a flurry of activity, as there were 4 more within the next 12 minutes. This time, each a little closer, and all with the V shape becoming very apparent. 2 minutes later, notice they're all on the same trajectory. 5 minutes later, what are we seeing here? How many of them are there? And at 12:53, the 6th of these objects flew by. We got it on both cameras, so we went to work on the math, and this is what we found out. Let the analysis begin. First, we wanted to see just an isolated snippet of the same time frame on both cameras. And that's what we presented here, and we stop it just ever so briefly as it passes the closest star in the Lyra constellation called Delta Lyra. And you can see that we'll be able to tell that there is a parallactic shift between the two cameras that are just 26 feet apart. You can see with both images of the object that Cam 2's object is actually much closer. There is measurable parallactic shift. To measure this, we have to get the exact moment of time in both cameras. As luck would have it, there are a couple of meteors on both cameras as well, so we can sync frames to a fraction of a second. What luck! Now that the object has been isolated in time on both cameras, we need to triangulate it in the sky. No worries, the stars will guide us. We will find 3 stars close to the object surrounding the object and get their sky coordinates. We chose Vega, Gamma Lyrae, also known as Sulfat, and Aldebaran. I only include those names if someone wants to go into Solarium to find this information as well. Using this information, we can solve triangles to get the distance. With the distance, we can get elevation. And with 2 points on the object, we can get size. And with a little time on that video, we can get speed. Okay, so let's do the numbers. We now know that the distance from camera 1 was 1,469 feet. The distance from camera 2 was 1,464 feet. The elevation, or how high it was flying above the Earth, was 821 feet. Its size was between 42 and 48 feet along one wing, so its wingspan would have been twice that, and its speed was 63 miles per hour. Now, as everything that we've calculated in all of our controlled tests, we have a plus and minus 2% degree of accuracy. So these numbers are approximate, but they are in the ballpark. That's a lot of information, but it doesn't really bring us any closer to figuring out what it is. But maybe we need to try to figure out what it isn't. The top 10 things that are mistaken for UFOs are aircraft, weather balloons, satellites, atmospheric phenomenon, astronomical objects, military tech, optical illusions, birds, insects, bats, flares or fireworks, or a hoax. Let's just explore these briefly. Aircraft. Well, this didn't have navigation lights. That one's out. Weather balloons. Didn't have the size or shape of a weather balloon. Satellites or space debris. We ruled that out with the camera and the measurements. Atmospheric phenomenon. Wasn't thunder or lightning or anything like that. Astronomical objects. Ruled that out with the measurements. Military tech or classified tech. That's still on hold. Optical illusions. No, the cameras kind of proved that wrong. Birds, insects, or bats. Let's put a pin in that one. Flares or fireworks, hoaxes or misinterpretations. None of those. So that just leaves military tech or classified tech, birds, insects, or bats, or something unknown. Okay, let's start with military, secret, or possibly illegal tech. The object appears rigid. And we only analyzed one, but we saw multiple similar objects. I know people have been reporting drones all over the country and even here in Colorado. But commercial drones, they can fly as fast as 60 miles per hour. Could someone be doing tests over these open spaces to do surveillance or mapping or some other activity? Some fixed-wing drones look a lot like this object, but they max out at about 20 feet across, so these objects are much, much bigger. A couple of stats line up with drones, speed and shape, but size not really at all. We can't debunk these as drones, at least not any that are publicly known about. That leaves birds. No single bird is this big. Eagles have an 8-foot wingspan, not an 80-foot one. So, flock of birds maybe? Geese fly in a V, which is called a skein. They fly at night during migration, and it is migration season. So, could it be geese? They fly around 60 miles an hour when in formation, so that fits. But have you ever seen a perfectly symmetrical skein? It's rare, and it doesn't happen 6 or 7 times in a row. At least I don't think so. Geese flap wings all the time, and the skein is designed to be dynamic, but this object was rigid. So again, one fact, speed lines up, but the behavior of the object doesn't fit. So where does this leave us? With a mystery. With a UFO. So that's it. That wraps up our nighttime skywatch filming the Lyrid Meteors, and it didn't disappoint. We ruled out the mundane possibilities to the best of our ability, and we were left with a mystery. What do you think it was? Tell us in the comments. Do you have questions about our investigation techniques? Let's get the conversation going. The links to our equipment are in the description if you'd ever like to film your own night sky watches to review later. The more cameras we get trained to the sky, the better data we will collect, and with more data, we can get more answers. Please like and subscribe to the channel so that you can join us for all our investigations. This is Adventures in UFO Hunting, signing off for now. We'll see you soon. But just remember, keep looking up.